Okay, hello everybody. I'm just going to give it a few minutes and let more people get in here before we get going. Oh, there's my mother. Hi, mother. um, so grab yourselves a beverage. It's the end of the week. So if you like wine or beer or just water or a soda, go grab yourself a beverage, a snack if you want a snack. Um, Todd is once again moderating tonight. He's in the other room. We are going to really moderate the comments because we want to leave this video up after we're done doing the live, just for people to reference if you want to reference in your own studies of the law of one. With that being said, of course, we don't believe in censorship. We believe everybody should be able to say whatever they want to say in a free society. However, we do have to comply with YouTube's terms of service. So we have to be careful with what is said in the chat as well. So just be mindful of that as we're going through the video. I also want to say that the raw material or the law of one is not my forte. It's not something I'm really well versed in. However, Todd has put together a really good outline for us. This is the raw material, the first book of the law of one, which I know we spoke a little bit about that last week. So we're going to do a brief outline. It gets really complicated with some of the philosophy in these books. There are 5 different books. The other 4 actually under my laptop right now to keep it up. But this is the first book. Most of the books are just conversations with the entity or the channeled entity known as Ra. Now, I do want to say before we get started that it was Aristotle who said it is a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it. So as we go through this philosophy, all we're doing is just looking through it. Every person is free to have his or her own opinion, and you can always think that something is interesting without necessarily believing it. So please be very kind to each other in the comment section. I know that sometimes people who are very passionate about their maybe fundamentalist beliefs have a really hard time looking at other material, but all we're doing is just looking at it. That's all we're doing. So again, just please be kind to each other. We're just investigating to see what it says. Again, you don't have to have an opinion. You could be in the gray, right? A lot of stuff is in the gray. I actually happen to like a lot of what, when we go walk our dog a lot, Todd talks about this a lot, this raw material and the spirituality behind it. And in my opinion, now I'm a very open-minded person in general, my opinion, a lot of this does align with a lot of religion anyway. The idea of polarization, which we're going to get into. And once again, I will repeat, we're not going to get into the real heavy philosophy because I just want to skim the surface with this with you guys. And I do, as always, think for anybody, you should always do your own research. So this is the raw material. It's the law of one by Ra, a humble messenger of the law of one. So again, most of the books are just questions and answers with this entity. Some of the vocabulary words might be a little weird. I'm going to read from some of it. That typically happens sometimes. Vocabulary words are words. It was Shakespeare who said a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. We have different names for different things that mean the same thing. And it's amazing how many people sometimes get caught up with vocabulary words, right? It's kind of silly. Wars get started over vocabulary words, right? So just bear with that. Last live, you guys were asking about super chats. I think we do have super chats turned on. I'm not 100% sure because we are still trying to figure out the whole live aspect of YouTube. Most of our videos are obviously pre-filmed because of the content that we cover on this channel is we're not a drama channel. We're not, although I do like the drama channels too. We're not that. We do like looking at French topics and stuff like that. So we usually pre-film. But with the lives, what I want to do is go through this stuff with you guys because, multiple minds are better than one. So I want to let you guys know in the description box. Oh, thank you, Cupcake Paper. Awesome. Thank you so much. That is very sweet of you. Also, at the end, as we go through the outline, I am probably not going to be able to look at the chat because I'm going to be looking at the outline. So again, Todd is moderating right now. So after we get through it, if you guys have any questions or want me to go back and reread something, I will be, just let me know. I'll tell you when I'm done and we can go back and relook at it. So again, thank you, Todd, for printing out all of the outline for me because he is really the expert in this, not me. So, okay, so let's go ahead. Now, if you look down the description box below, if you can see it right now, I don't know if you can see it in the live, but I do have a website that I posted, and it's the Synopsis website of the raw material. And this was a synopsis put together on November 26th of 2019 by a woman named Susan Walter. Funny that, hello from England, hello. Funny that, oh, awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Awesome. We love you and appreciate all of you guys. I have a great community of people. November 26, 2019. So that was right before the proverbial shit hit the fan. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because it kind of comes into the raw material, which is super interesting. I will say, so there's a spiritual teacher that passed away in 2019. He was a really famous teacher. His name is Ram Dass, and he's one of my favorite teachers. And he used to always say that when you don't really have an opinion or if something kind of triggers you, but you don't know how to feel, you can always just look at it as being interesting. Okay, that's interesting, right? And so I find it very interesting that this stuff is kind of aligning with some of what the raw material speaks about. So the synopsis, if you want to pull up the website, if you're able to, you can. I'm just going to briefly go through it. We're not going to go through the whole website. So this is, again, a 5-book series. For those who are just joining us, this is the first book, The Raw Material. I have not read it, but Todd has. And it was a philosophy published between 1982 to 1998. So who is Ra? Ra, they describe as a non-human, multi-dimensional being that was channeled, okay? So the book contains messages and dialogue with this being. So Ra describes itself as a 6th. Oh, cool, from Florida. Awesome, awesome. Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy all of you guys are here. But it's a 6th density being that is now coming through to talk to us. And we're in 3rd density bodies, and we're in a 3rd density world, which again, we'll get to in a minute what that means. So Ra claims to be these entities that helped build the pyramids in Egypt. And we know there's a lot of confusion around the pyramids. There's a whole pyramid code, which I've looked into. Todd, again, knows more about that. I do plan on actually doing a series on the pyramid code because it's fascinating. Again, I think we kind of know now that they weren't just like graves, that there's something else about the pyramids that's very special. And according to what Todd was telling me is that the Ra group, it kind of express themselves through shapes. In the practice of yoga, we use our bodies to create shapes. When we go into any type of a religious center, a temple, a synagogue, a church, there are shapes, right? So shapes are something that we really interact with in our world. But something happened, something went amiss, man fell from grace, and there was some confusion, which we're going to get into with the law of confusion, which is going to come up in a second. So the law of one. So the law of one is 12 universal principles that lead to the basic principle that all is one, so that everything is connected and is one. And we've heard that a lot from a lot of spiritual communities. So the philosophy covers the big life questions like, how are we here? Why are we here? What's the point of life? All that stuff. And that all things basically come through the infinite, which is going to get more back to what we associate as God. So I'm going to read directly from the website. She says here, the law of one states that this universe, one of many, was created by the one infinite creator out of itself by distorting its energy into the parts of existence called distortions. This process occurred one distortion at a time. So we have three distortions we're working with. The first one is free will. And we all know that free will is like the main cosmic law. And free will cannot be trampled upon. Laura Eisenhower, who is President Eisenhower's great-granddaughter, I believe, she has a excellent video where she basically challenges the rulers. Oh, thanks, Mom. Mom just in a super chat. Basically challenges the rulers of our world because they're enforcing certain things on us this year that goes against our free will, right? Like we didn't choose to have to like stop our lives. We didn't consent to that. Some people have. My state's basically pretty much open, but there are people that are still consenting to not leaving their houses. But a lot of us did not consent to that. So there is a cosmic law that has been broken, and that cannot be. That has to be intervention. That cannot be, right? So that's the first distortion is free will. The second is love, and the third distortion is light. So all other substances and forms come from an interaction with these three distortions. So that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Like we interact with our free will all the time. We also interact within the bounds of love. We also interact within the bounds of light. Yeah. So, okay. So now we're going to move on to this awesome printout that Todd put together for us. Okay. So these are just some terms to understand from Ra. The one infinite creator, the law of one states that there is only one, and that one is the infinite creator, which Ra also calls the infinite intelligent and the intelligent infinity, okay? It is impossible to describe the one undifferentiated intelligent infinity unpolarized, full and whole, but it can be activated or potentiated. Each portion of the creation contains, paradoxically, the whole. So basically, oh, thanks, my stepdad. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the super chat. So this is really interesting to me, and I've said this a lot. So, you know, the yoga, as everybody knows or should know, that's our job. That's like our main job is we run a yoga shala. We spend a lot of time in India. I've spent a lot of time studying the yoga philosophy. I really dig philosophy. I dig history and philosophy. And the one thing about the Yoga Sutras, there's three main characters. There's Prakriti, Purusha, and Ishvara. Prakriti is nature, anything that has a birth, a life, and a death. So everything that we identify with is Prakriti. Purusha is that which is inside of you that goes on forever. It's like your soul. It never dies. And Ishvara is God. Now, Ishvara just observes with Purusha, observes Prakriti. And man's suffering, human beings suffer because we get attached to nature, which is always changing and will die, and not connecting to Purusha, the side of us that is eternal. And one thing man also does, because man gets attached to the nature, is man puts God or the infinite source into the parameters of a human being. We project onto God the way human beings think. That's where a lot of these wars over religion have come from, is that we are, oh, awesome. Thank you, Carrie. I hope to visit Arizona very, very soon. I really, really would love to go out there. Thank you so much, Carrie. That means a lot to me. So we project our own opinions of what God would think onto God, but God is not man. And so therefore, that's incorrect. And so Ra is saying that as well. Ra is saying that the one infinite creator is everything unpolarized as a whole of infinite intelligence. And that's something that us as third density beings with a mortal mind that has a beginning, a middle, end cannot understand something that was never born and will never die, right? So illusion, since all is one, all manifestations or appearances of manyness is an illusion. According to Ra, it is an illusion carefully engineered in order to give the creator the opportunity to know itself, okay? So that's, again, connecting it into the yoga, the Purusha inside of us, that soul that connects to God. Again, we talked about the three distortions, so we'll go a little bit deeper. Free will is the first distortion. The first distortion is free will or affinity or the limit of viewpoint. So again, there's boundaries, right? So again, that idea of birth, life, death, beginning, middle, end, everything's always changing. It'll eventually die. There are boundaries as a human mind. We can't comprehend something that was never born. And there's limited access to what we can actually understand with this incarnation that we're in. The created universe that we experience is the creator's exploration of itself through the first dissertation, which Ra calls the laws of confusion. So Ra defines free will as the recognition that the creator will know itself. And again, the laws of confusion, when we have boundaries that we can't get past, it creates suffering or illusion. Yes, George, God is not man. He created, yeah, exactly. God is not man, but we sometimes put God in that category of having opinions like man has, and that's just not true because God isn't man. The second dissertation is the logos or the love. So the second dissertation is love or the logos or the creative principle. It is the focus, the choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which causes intellectual energy to be formed from a potential of intellectual infinity in just such and such a way. A logos can create a single star system, or it can create a galaxy with billions of star systems. Each galaxy has its own system of natural law, and I believe its own cosmic mind. Ra says that some of its members have wondered to the creation of other logi, and that the experience has been one with staggers the intellectual and the intuitive capacities. In the case of galactic systems, the first physical manifestation of a logos is a cluster of central systems. So that gets kind of complicated to understand. And if you get into the raw material yourself and read the book, you're gonna see logos and logi kind of interwoven between the conversations with Ra. And again, it's literally just vocabulary words at this point. So anyway, the third dissertation is light. It is the first manifestation visible to the eye. Light is intelligent, full of energy, and the building block of what we call matter, right? Matter is nature. We need light to survive. We actually need the sun to survive. Light's characteristics include the infinite whole, paradoxically described by this straight line. Ra says that this paradox is responsible for the shape of various physical illusion entities you call solar systems, galaxies, and planets, all revolving and tending towards the lenticular. Light energy has an upward spiraling characteristic with evolution. All right, so it's changing, right? And we know that. Actually, I was just watching a recent episode with Tarot by Janine, who comes on this channel, and they were she was with Catherine Edwards in England, and they were talking about the sun and the changes of the sun and how they've convinced us all these years that we should hide from the sun when we need the sun. And the stuff they tell us to put all over ourselves can actually cause more problems than the sun itself. So that's interesting. So we have the mind-body-spirit complex. So this is the mind-body-spirit after the veiling process, a self-awareness of an incarnated being. So that's all of us, right? The mind-body-spirit, we're all incarnated beings on this earth. Okay, the veil. Our logos wanted to give the creator the highest quality experience of itself possible. It and other logi therefore carefully veiled the subconscious and deep minds from the conscious mind in third density. So we get that, right? Like we talk about that a lot in our, psychology today. Like we have subconscious reactions that we're not conscious of and conscious. We have that veil where sometimes we don't understand the way that why we're reacting to certain situations, whether that be past trauma or whatever, or how we've been bred to handle something where it's kind of beyond this veil of reality of what we actually realize we're doing. And part of the yoga practice is understanding that about yourself, is actually starting to investigate that part of yourself. So there is some similarities here with a lot of Eastern. Yeah, I've heard that, Nick. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that that dude, I can't say his name here, but that dude you're talking about is going to be in some trouble soon. So y'all should really go check out Laura Eisenhower's channel and see if you can find her video where she calls him out hardcore. All right, so then we have these two different concepts. We have with the idea of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind as well. So we have time, space, and space, time. Time, space, the first one is stuff we can't see. So in Ra's metaphysics, the environment of inner planes and unseen worlds. So basically what we can't see within ourselves and what we can't see around us, these unseen worlds that we cannot see around us because we're only in a third density being, which we're going to get to in a minute. So space-time is stuff that we can see. So Ra's term for what we experience in our physical reality. So the logos is the creative principle or love. According to Ra, the logos is the second dissertation of intelligence or infinity. So now we get to the really important part of what's happening on our timeline right now, which I absolutely think also correlates with like the book of Revelation in the Bible. And it also correlates to the War Scroll in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. So if you can get past the vocabulary and the different way of explaining philosophy, these two principal philosophies very much mirror each other, especially with the idea of polarization. So polarization is to move towards a pole in the context of spiritual evolution. Move either towards service to others, which is the positive polarization, or service to self, which is the negative polarization. And we'll get deeper into that as we move forward. So the confederation of planets in the service of the infinite creator, allied in the service according to the law of one. We kind of talk about that. We're starting to hear more about like the Galactic Federation and all this kind of stuff. So I think you guys are totally aware of where they're kind of going with that. All right, the two paths. So just as a magnet has two poles, the positive and the negative, so does consciousness. In consciousness, the poles are the paths of service to other and service to self. The goal of third density is to choose a path of service. So you're going to either polarize negative or positive. That's the one job we all have in this third density life, is to decide if we're going to serve the light or serve the darkness, service to others, service to self, serve God or serve Satan. Different vocabulary words, same thing, right? So in order to choose the positive path, at least 51% of our thoughts and actions must be dedicated to the service of others. Only 51%. So if you're going to polarize positive, you're allowed to screw up. Like there are laws of forgiveness. You're allowed to have times where you screw up and you mess up. It's fine. You just have to be 51% of you has to be empathetic, compassionate, wanting to do the right thing for other people. For the negative path, one must be at least 95% self-serving. So 95% to be on the negative path, 95% of your being has to be self-serving. That's why I can't say too much because of censorship, and I don't want this video to get struck, but that's why we're seeing all this awful stuff happening with our people in charge, if you guys know what I mean, because it has to be that bad in order for them to polarize negative, which they are choosing to do. Most people are between the two lies the sinkhole of indifference. And Todd and I talk about this a lot, actually, the sinkhole of indifference. Most are the gray area. Most people are far along their path before they realize that they have made a choice. Again, that's that veil of subconscious and they haven't realized they've made it yet. But a lot of people are going to fall in the gray. And what that means, we'll get to. Just as it's impossible to judge the polarity of a magnet, so is it impossible and inappropriate to judge the polarity of another being. All right, the harvest. So this is kind of where we're going to get to what this all means. I know that sounds kind of scary, the harvest, but it's not scary. The process of which entities graduate into the density most comfortable to them. When you graduate, when you've finished, you've picked a side, and now you're going to move on up, right? When an entity is harvested, its spirit complex moves along a line of light until the light becomes too glaring. The point at which it stops is the vibration or density in which it will experience the next cycle of incarnations. In third density, the harvest occurs after each 25,000 year major cycle, as well as at the end of the complete 75,000 year master cycle, which many people believe who follow the raw material that we are here. We are at the 75,000 mark of the master cycle. In addition, entities who consciously open the gateway to intelligent infinity can choose to be harvested at any time during the master cycle. At harvest, entities heal themselves, distill the experiences of the density, and then choose the most appropriate new environment for themselves. Ra says the process is watched over and facilitated by angelic presences, by members of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the Infinite Creator, and by the guardians from the next octave of creation. All right, so now we're moving on again to go deeper into the harvest. So densities last for predetermined lengths of time. At the end of the allotted time, there is a harvest. So again, it's like a graduation. It'd be kind of cool if we started calling our graduations harvest. Like you're going to your kid's kindergarten graduation. I'm going to my kid's harvest. That's kind of cool. In which those who have learned the lessons of density graduate to the following density. Those who have not learned the lessons repeat the density. So if you fall in the gray, if you haven't made a choice between polarizing negative and positive, you got to do this whole master cycle all over again. Okay. The requirement for graduation from third density is having chosen a path of service to self or others again. And the 75,000 year time period for Earth's third density is at an end. According to Ra, the year 2011, so we know that the time has shifted. Our timeline has shifted. That some people say 2020 was actually 2012, but there's some inconsistency with the time, which we know that the people who are consciously polarizing negative are doing this intentionally. So trying to outsmart what they can't outsmart. An appropriate portable possible time-space nexus for harvest. However, Ra has difficulty calculating time and is not confident making predictions. Nonetheless, the cycle moves as precisely as clock strikes your hour. Thus, the gateway from intellectual energy or intellectual infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. The possibility probability vortice indicates that the transition to fourth density will take from 100 to 700 years. However, this cannot be accurate due to the volatility of your people at this space-time. So Todd and I have talked about this. Apparently, Earth is a pretty violent planet to be on. Apparently, other third density planets are not as rough as ours has been. So we're holding strong, guys. We're doing a good job. So this is where it gets super interesting. The Earth will soon be a fourth density service to others planet, but many of its future inhabitants may have to come from elsewhere because many Earth natives have not yet chosen a path of service. Once fourth density is fully underway, only first, second, and fourth density creatures will inhabit the planet, which we'll get into the other densities soon. Those current third density inhabitants of Earth who have not yet chosen a path will go to other third density planets through the process of death here and reincarnation elsewhere. So it's like they got to repeat the grade. They got to be held back because they haven't figured it out. They're still living in that indifference, whatever. They're neither positive nor negative. So what are densities? So let's get to that. We are third density. We're trying to get to fourth density. So the creation has 7 levels or density. The 8th density forming the first density of the next octave of experience. Hold on one second. Just as the 8th note of a musical scale begins a new octave. Between 7th and 8th density, the creation reemerges in a period of timeless, formless unity with its creator. It is Ra's understanding that the way of an octave are without time. That is, there are 7 densities in each creation infinitely. They point out, though, that the limits of their knowledge are narrow. So what is first density? So first density is the density of awareness, in which the planet moves out of the timeless state into physical manifestation. Its elements are earth, air, water, and fire. On Earth, after matter has come together and space-time has begun to unroll its scroll of livingness. First density took about 2 billion years. So that's like basically nature, plants, rocks, water. It's here, it's alive, but it doesn't have it's that first level of consciousness. Second density is the density of growth, in which what we call biological life emerges and evolves into greater and greater complexity. Second densities on Earth took about 4.6 billion years. From what I understand, and Todd can correct me, but I believe that animals are second density. So, from what we've talked about, like in order for an animal to move up into third density, where we are, has to be loved by a third density being. So if you got a pet and you love that pet, you're giving that pet an opportunity to come into its next reality once its time in its second density has come to an end. So that's pretty cool. Our dog Ravi, I don't want him leaving anytime soon, but when that day comes, he will then come into a third density being because he's been loved by us pretty much unconditionally. Our whole household revolves around our dog. So third density, that's us. We're third density, is the density of self-awareness and the first density of consciousness of spirit. So we became aware that we are spirit, right? That we have the study of yoga. We have the idea of God, of something bigger. We are that third density where we're like, oh, it's not just my immediate surroundings. There's a mystery to the world. Neil, I just caught your question. Todd, yes, I have not read the first book. Todd has been studying this for years, so he could probably answer the questions for you because he's been studying this for a really long time. And yeah, George, your cat is going to come back when it's time into a new density. So third density is the density of self-awareness and the first density of consciousness of spirit. It is the axis upon which creation turns because in it entails entities choose the way, either service to others or service to self. So animals, nature don't really have that access to make that choice, whether service to others or service to self, in which they will further evolve towards their creator. So third density is like the first stepping stones to being able to make your own free will decisions, right? Third density is much shorter than the other densities, taking only 75,000 years. So fourth density, so that's where we're trying to get this planet to, is now into fourth density. So fourth density is the density of love or understanding. Those who have successfully chosen a path come together with others of like mind in what Ra calls a social memory complex in order to pursue the path, either loving self or loving others. So there's fourth density negative as well. So you either go fourth density negative or fourth density positive. The Earth, apparently, according to this philosophy, is about to evolve into a fourth density loving planet or service to others. Fourth density lasts approximately 30 million years. Fourth density lifespans are approximately 90,000 years. And so we think about some entities like Palladians. We've talked about Palladians on this channel. And so Palladians are like fourth density beings. And again, fourth density can be both negative and positive. Think about angels and demons, right? Fifth density. So fifth density is the density of light or wisdom. Lessons are often learned individually rather than a social memory complex. Fifth density entities are beautiful by our standards because they change their shape in physical forms. And it's funny, as I was reading this, I asked Todd, like, what would an angel be? Would an angel, or in the opposite form, a demon? Would they be fourth, fifth, sixth, what? And even Todd said, like, they're different densities depending on like what they understand. And it made me think of, like, in the Bible, we learn like archangels and like regular angels and how there's different levels of angels even. And so it kind of matches these densities. So fifth density. So now we go to sixth density. And this is what Ra says that Ra was. Ra was a sixth density being. It's the density of unity in which love and wisdom are blended together. The two paths reunite as those of the service to self path. So people, after they've gone fourth density negative for the other side and fifth density negatives, they realize that the service to self path, realizing they cannot successfully master the lesson of unity without opening their hearts to others. So the negative is totally service to self, and they realize, okay, I can't go any further. So that's when they have to merge then. Raw is a sixth density, and they have to switch their polarity to positive. Raw is a sixth density. Their sixth density is a cycle of 75 million years. Seventh density is the gateway density, in which we once again become one with all. It is a density of completion and a turning towards timeless or foreverness. Eighth density is also the beginning of the first density of the next creation. It is both omega and alpha, the spiritual mass of the infinite universe becoming one central sun or creator once again, then is born in a new universe, a new infinity, a new logos, which incorporates all the creator has experienced of itself. And so again, if any of that sounds super confusing, you can always just be like, okay, I'll look at the confusing stuff later, but let's just focus on the third and fourth density, service to others, service to self stuff right now, because that's what's really important, because that's what we can control right now. So questions on wanderers. So we talked about this a little last week. So this is why I wanted to really get an outline for you guys, and why we went over some of the other big concepts of Ra, what Ra was saying before we get into the wanderers. Because we talked about, I know with Janine, like I think the first video I did with Janine, I asked Janine if there were a lot of wanderers here right now. Todd thinks that he and I are wanderers. Probably a lot of you might be wanderers too, because you're pretty awake. And you're, all pretty positive people. So it's just interesting to look at this stuff. So let's look at the wanderers. And I'm reading this directly. This comes directly from the books, okay? So question. So this is the person asking the questions. And the person who did this was a scientist, like a physicist. You can read more about the people who did this. It's pretty interesting. I wasn't really going to get into them tonight, but just the subject. But they were pretty well-educated people. So questioner. You spoke of wanderers. Who are the wanderers and where do they come from? And Ra says, I am Ra. Imagine, if you will, the sands of your shores. As countless as the grains of sands are the sources of intelligent infinity. When a social memory complex has achieved its complete understanding of its desire, it may conclude that its desire is service to others, with the dissertation towards reaching their hand figuratively to any entities who call for aid. These entities, whom you may call the brothers and sisters of sorrow, move towards this calling of sorrow, which we'll get into later on in this. So basically, wanderers are people who are entities who have already graduated third density, whether they be fourth density or fifth density, and they've decided to come back. They made the agreement to come back into third density, into a third density body, specifically for this time, because our Earth, our planet, needed help shifting. And there's some problems that arise with that, which we'll get into. So, and there's some signs to look for who these wanderers are. Maybe they could be people that are old souls, So, questioner, how many of them are incarnate on the earth now? So this was the early 80s when they were doing this. Ra says, I am Ra. The number is approximate due to a heavy influx of those birthed this time due to intense need to lighten the planetary vibration and thus aid in the harvest, which I just said. I was born in 1983. So he's saying they're all being born now. And that was around the time I was born. Todd was born in 72. The number approaches 65 million. So 65 million people here at that time who were wanderers. Some of them just infants at that time. Questioner, are most of these from the fourth density? What density do they come from? And Ra says, I am Ra. Few there are of fourth density. So few people at wanderers are actually fourth density. The largest of wanderers, as you call them, are the sixth density. So a lot of people here are actually coming back from sixth density. The desire to serve must be distorted towards a great deal of purity of mind and what you may call foolhardiness or bravery. So a lot of the wanderers that potentially, if you're looking at this philosophy, would be people that are putting themselves out there right now. Tom Numbers, Janine, Nicholas Vaniaman, Charlie Ward, Catherine, Mel K, many others who are putting themselves out there and taking a lot. just to get stuff out there to help us all, everyone just kind of wake up, work together, and shift this planet into a good place. So they mentioned that idea of bravery in the early 1980s before we even had any concept of what was to come. The challenge damage of a wanderer is that it will forget its mission. So this is when we get to some weird stuff, that it is possible for a person to come back into third density and forget its mission, and become karmically involved, and thus be swept in the maelstrom from which it has incarnated to aid in the destruction. So it can either like switch to negative or just get karmically involved and go back into the gray, because when a wanderer decides to come back, it comes into a third density body with a third density mind, thus for forgetting where it's come from. So questioner, what could one of these entities do to become karmically involved? Could you give us an example? Ra says, I am Ra, an entity which acts in a consciously unloving manner in action with other beings can become karmically involved. Now remember, again, it's 51% to polarize positive. So, yeah, Nick, I just caught that. So, yeah, light workers, earth angels, yeah, it's just different words for pretty much the same thing. So karmically involved, so they can like fall back in the gray because they forgot while they were here. They don't remember being fourth density. They just remember being third density. But a lot of wanderers have an inkling to like wake people up. You know, they feel like they just have to do it. There's just that bravery is just there. They have this like dharma that they have to do. So questioner, I had a thought. Do any of these wanderers have physical ailments in this earth situation? So this is big. This is big for me, especially. A lot of this has to do with blood type too, but this was big for me. So Ra says, I am Ra. Due to the extreme variance between the vibratory distortions of third density and those who are more dense densities, if you will, wanderers have a general rule, some form of handicap, difficulty, or feeling of alienation, which is severe. The most common of these difficulties are alienation, the reaction against planetary vibration by personality disorders, as you would call them. So people who are attacked a lot. Oh, thank you, Carrie. That's so kind of you. People who are attacked a lot, but like I've had a lot of narcissists come into my life. So has Todd. We have like what they call it, Todd, negative readings, that you get attacked a lot. When you're a wanderer, obviously people who have narcissistic personality disorder might possibly be going negative. We can't judge that though, but they get kind of attacked a lot. So that's what he's talking about. When you're a wanderer, even if you have no idea why it's happening, you're going to get attacked a lot. I also get attacked a lot spiritually as well. I wake up with scratch marks and bruises all the time, which Todd has seen happen, as has my mom. Yeah, Cupcake, absolutely. It's crazy, isn't it? Like you feel like you're just constantly battling something. And the body complex ailments, including difficulty in adjustment to planetary vibrations, such as allergies, as you would call them, also digestive issues. Wanderers have a hard time with digestion. So allergies, digestion, asthma. It's like your body, even though your body is third density, it's like the spirit in the body can't quite adjust to the vibrations of where it is now, right? So let's see. All right, I'm skipping through a lot of the real heavy philosophy because that's we're just skimming the surface, and that's definitely good. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so now we're going to get to the Orion stuff. And a lot of you who are really into like disclosure and like aliens probably know a lot about Orion and the Orion belt and all that kind of stuff. So Ra is service to others. So it's the positive polarity, whereas the Orion is the service to self that is the equivalent to Ra. There's a really awesome guy. I can't remember his name. Todd, if you can remember, you can put it in. He's been on Carrie Cassidy's show, Project Camelot, where he kind of follows the Orion belt in different locations on the earth. I think that's about all I can say on YouTube. So you can kind of see this contracting battle, right, between the two. So questioner, the many wanderers to this planet now and in the recent past are subject to Orion thought. So that's like negative thought. Ra says, I am Ra. As we have said before, wanderers become completely the creature of third density and mind-body complex. There is just as much chance of such influence to a wanderer entity as to a mind-body-spirit complex of this planetary sphere. The only difference occurs in the spirit complex, which, if it wishes, has an armor of light, if you will, which enables it to recognize more clearly that which is not and would appropriately be desired by the mind-body-spirit complex. This is not more than a bias and cannot be called an understanding. Furthermore, the wanderer is in its own mind-body-spirit complex less disordered towards that, shall we say, the deviousness of the third density positive negative confusion. Thus, it often does not recognize as easy as a more negative individual the negative nature of thoughts or beings. So they're not going to recognize somebody who's more sinister, you know. So it's just not the nature, right? So questioner. So this is a big one, guys. We talked about wanderers falling off the path. So the questioner asked, would then the wanderers, as they incarnate here, be high priority targets, shall we say, of the Orion group? And Ra says, I am Ra. This is correct. So if you are a wanderer and you are attacked constantly by narcissists, by people with major personality disorders that attack you, as we call them, personality disorders, spiritually, if you feel alienated, then you're probably targeted by this group because they know exactly who you are, even when you might not know who you are, if that makes sense. So questioner. And if a wanderer were to be successfully infringed upon, shall we say, by the Orion group, what would happen to this wanderer at the harvest? So if a wanderer who's positive came back to help planet shift were to be infiltrated and turned to the dark side, Ra says, I am Ra. If the wanderer entity demonstrates through action of negative orientation towards other selves, it would be, as we have said before, caught into the planetary vibration, and when harvested, possibly repeat again the master cycle of third density as a planetary entity. This shall be the last full question of this session. So then we move to a different session. Questioner. I'm assuming from what we have previously looked at, we have on Earth today and have had in this past 4th, 5th, and 6th density wanderers, as they come into incarnation into the physical of this density for a period as a wanderer, what type of polarizations with respect to these various rays do they find affecting them? Can you tell me about that? Anyway, then Ra goes in. I probably should have scratched it because Ra goes in and says he can't answer that. So it's interesting. Actually, yeah, we're going to skip that because that gets a little bit complicated. And sometimes Ra will say, I can't answer that. Okay, let's see here. All right, here we go. Then the 6th density entity who has reached that point in positive orientation may choose to become what we call a wanderer and move back. I'm wondering this if ever occurs with a negative oriented 6th density entity. Do any move back as wanderers? Ra says, I am Ra. Once the negatively polarized entity has reached a certain point in the wisdom density, it becomes extremely unlikely that it will choose to risk the forgetting, for this polarization is not selfless but selfish, and with wisdom realizes the jeopardy of such wandering. So usually the negative ones don't want to come back. They're like, oh crap, I don't want to do this again. It's only the positive ones that are like, yeah, we'll go back and do this. Occasionally a 6th density negative entity becomes a wanderer in an effort to continue to polarize towards the negative. This is extremely unusual. Questioner. Then what is the motivation for the, let me finish the question first. What is the motivation? What is the mechanism that this unusual 6th density entity would wish to gain to polarize more negatively through wandering? Ra says, I am Ra. The wanderer has the potential of greatly accelerating the density whence it comes from in its progress and evolution. This is due to the intensive life experience and opportunities of the 3rd density. Thusly, the positive-oriented wanderer chooses to hazard the danger of the forgetting in order to be of service to others by radiating love for others. So the positive is willing to come back and jeopardize it because the positive has such love for others and wants to serve others that the positive will jeopardize that. If forgetting is penetrating the amount of catalyst in third density will polarize the wanderer with much greater efficiency than shall be expected in higher, more harmonious density. Similarity, the negative-oriented wanderer dares to hazard the forgetting in order that it might accelerate in the process of evolution in its own density by servicing itself in third density, by offering to other selves the opportunity to hear the information having to do with the negative polarization. That's a lot of words. A lot of complications there. And I will say, Todd and I have talked about this. If a negative entity, a negative polarized negative entity can turn an entity that is polarized positive to the dark side, it gives the dark side more power. And so that's also another reason why the Wanderer gets attacked so much. It's not just to stop the Wanderer from transferring the planet into a fourth density positive, but it's also to garnish more power for itself. It's kind of like parasites feeding off of something. Questioner, are there any examples of sixth density negative polarized wanderers in our historical past? This is super interesting. This is super juicy, and I really wish Ra would explain more. So again, the question is they're asking, are there any examples of sixth density negatively polarized wanderers in our historical past? Meaning, have there been people in our historical path that were sixth density wanderers who came back to third density? And Ra says, I am Ra. This information could be harmful. We withhold it. Please attempt to view the entities about you as a part of the creator. We can explain no further. So Ra's like, listen, we're not going there. So that's super interesting, right? I wish Ra would explain more, but apparently they're going to withhold that information for us and not let us know who these people were. Okay. So questioner, can you tell me the large percentage of wanderers here now are those of Ra? So Ra is an organization of these sixth density positive. And Ra says, I am Ra, I can. So this gets into the brothers and sisters of sorrow that they talked about in the beginning. And again, it's within the Confederation. And we talked about Egypt with the pyramids. They expressed themselves through shapes, and it kind of got people into trouble. A man fell from grace, and the earth became a very volatile place. So it was kind of like, oh crap, what did we just do? And so that's why these positive entities are the brothers and sisters of sorrow. Questioner, are they? Ra says, a significant portion of sixth density wanderers are those of our social memory complex. Another large portion consists of those who aided it in those in South America. Another portion, those aiding in Atlantis. All six densities and all brothers and sister groups due to the ununified feeling that as we had been aided by shapes such as pyramids, so could we aid our people. So again, they express themselves through shapes. All right. So questioner, can you tell me of various techniques used by the service to others or positively oriented Confederation contacts with the people of this planet, the various forms of and techniques of them making contact? And Ra says, I am Ra, we could. And questioner said, would you do this, please? Ra says, I am Ra. The most effective mode of contact is that which you experience in space-time. So space-time, again, is what we can see, our world around us, and time-space is what we can't see. The infringement upon free will is greatly undesired. Therefore, those entities which are wanderers upon your plane of illusion will be the only subjects for thought projections which make up the so-called close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. So a lot of wanderers have paranormal experiences. A lot of wanderers, Todd has had a lot of UFO experiences. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences, sometimes on a daily basis. So wanderers are able to interact with these things beyond the veil sometimes. All right. So questioner, I have become aware of a very large variation in contact with individuals. The Confederation, I'm assuming, uses a form of contact to awaken, as you say, wanderers. And could you give me a general example of the method used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers as they are connecting? Ra says, I am Ra. The method used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you are aware. So they're saying that they allow us to experience this just to like nudge us a little bit, like, hey, wake up, remember you're here on a mission, even though you can't remember everything because you're back in third density, but you basically have a job to do. And a lot of people who have paranormal experiences or close encounters, it becomes very personal, right? They're telling people because it's a personal thing to them. I'm sure a lot of you have had that. So questioner, now we have, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think you said 65 million wanderers approximately. Am I correct? And Ross says, yes, that is correct. All right. Then we won't question it. I would like to ask first about the mistake. Okay, so they made a mistake. They said 600 million, but it was 65 million, so we're going to skip that. So we're going to go down to the question. I have assumed that the reason that so many wanderers and those harvested third density entities who have been transferred here find it a privilege, an exceptionally beneficial time to be incarnate upon this planet, is that the effect that I just spoke of gives them opportunity to be more fully of service because it is increased seeking. Is this in general correct? Ra says, I am Ra. This is the intention which wanderers had prior to incarnation. There are many wanderers whose dysfunctions with regard to the planetary ways of your people have caused, to some extent, a condition of being caught up in the configuration of mind complex activity, which to this corresponding extent may prohibit the intended service. So sometimes the stuff we go through can kind of push us off course, the vibrations that we deal with because we're on a different plane of existence. All right. Questioner, well, this entire scenario over the next week, shall I say 20 years, seems to be aimed at producing an increasing and seeking and increasing in the awareness of the natural creation, but also a terrific amount of confusion. Was it the pre-incarnative objective of many wanderers to attempt to reduce this confusion? Ra says, I am Ra. It was the aim of wanderers to serve the entities of this planet in whatever way was requested. And it was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory pattern might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole. Thus, the effects of planetary disharmony might result in disharmony. Okay, specific intentions such as aiding the situation, not yet manifest, or not yet the aim of wanderers. Light and love go where they are sound and needed, and their direction is not planned aforetimes. All right, so let me skip some of this. All right, so now we're going to get to the forgetting process, which we go through if you are a wanderer. So let's just say we're all wanderers, just for the purpose of this discussion, that we're all wanderers. And so we decided we're going to come back to Earth during this time because we want to help this planet evolve into a positive planet. So we have to go through a birthing cycle into third density from fourth, fifth, or sixth density. And so we have to go through what they call the forgetting process, where we forget where we came from so that we can be in third density bodies. So, questioner, the forgetting process was puzzling me because you said that fourth density activated people who were here, who have been harvestable, did not have the same forgetting problem. Could you tell me why the wanderer loses its memory? And Ross says the reason is twofold. First, the genetic properties of the connection between the mind, body, and spirit complex and the cellular structure of the body is different for third density than for fourth and fifth density. That makes sense. So the natural body, the DNA of a third density being cannot hold the same memory as fourth, fifth, or sixth. Secondly, the free will of third density entity needs to be preserved. So you have to come back into third density with the law, the first dissertation of free will. So you can't have these opposing things from your last incarnation. You have to have free will. Thus, wanderers volunteer for third density genetics or DNA connections to the mind, body, spirit. The forgetting process can be penetrated to the extent of the wanderer remembering what it is and why it is upon the planetary sphere. However, it would be infringement if the wanderer penetrated the forgetting so far as to activate the more dense bodies and thus be able to live, shall we say, in a godlike manner. That would not be proper for those who have chosen to serve. The new fourth density entities, which are becoming able to demonstrate various newer abilities, are doing so as a result of the present experience, not as a result of memory. There are always a few exceptions, and we ask your forgiveness for the constant overgeneralization. So it all basically has to do with free will. I think that makes sense, right? So, question. Let's see. Now, a wanderer who has an origin from fifth or sixth density can attempt such a healing and have little or no results. This indicates to me that there is some function of the activated body since can you tell me what the wanderer has lost and why it's necessary for him to regain certain balances and abilities to protect his healing ability? Ra says, I am Ra. You may see the wanderer as the infant attempting to verbalize the sound complexes of your people. So it's like a baby trying to speak, right? The memory of the ability to communicate is within the infant's undeveloped mind complex, but the ability to practice or manifest this, called speech, is not immediately forthcoming due to the limitations of the mind-body-spirit's complex. It is chosen to be part of this experience. So it is with the wanderer which, remembering the ease which adjustments can be made in the home density, yet still have entered third density, cannot manifest the memory due to the limitations of the chosen experience. The chances of a wanderer being able to heal in third density are only more than those naive to this density, because the desire to serve may be stronger than the method of service chosen. All right. Let's see here. So I think that's about it for us to go through, because that's the wanderers, and that's kind of a brief introduction, very, very brief, into the law of one. When I was kind of doing some research, a lot of people were saying that they had a really hard time reading the law of one because of the vocabulary used. So does anybody have any questions? I'm trying to read through everything. Salmon. Oh, thanks, George. You go get you some beers, George. Awesome. Yeah. So what do y'all think of that? I think it pretty much lines up with a lot of religions. Religion is man-made. It's coming from a third density understanding, and I think one of the most freeing, liberating things that we can have as human beings is understand that we don't understand everything, and that we can't, because we have a mortal mind. It's kind of liberating to know that there are just some things that we will never actually understand. Do wanderers have a great memory? White Wolf 2000. That's a good question. I don't know. Todd, do you know if you can hear me, Todd? I don't know. I don't know if they do or not. Well, I'll have to see what Todd knows about that, because I've actually never read. I mean, Todd is the master of this, not me. Let's see. Oh, cool. Trying to look through some of these questions. Reincarnation. Yeah, Todd said earlier, if you connect with the raw material, and most likely you're either a wanderer or a potential fourth density graduate. So there's a reason why you found it. So Cherry Awake said these books shaped and confirmed most of my beliefs. My dad was really into the Seth books, which I believe channeling with Ra as well. I've never read the Seth books, Cherry. Maybe Todd knows more, but I've heard of that, so I'll have to look into that. Let's see here. Oh, hi from Essex. Cool, Neil. You guys in England, y'all are really getting it, aren't you? I was just listening to some other stuff. I obviously have friends in London. Tom is over there, which he's on this channel a lot. And you guys have really gotten it hard. So we are thinking about you guys. Yes, Cherry. Secrets of the UFO is the prequel to The Law of One. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I love the green velvet chair with the small. Cool, awesome. Yeah. Actually, it was a green chair was from my grandparents' house. In my new video, if you guys haven't seen it, from this morning, I picked a new location to try, and the chair is really comfortable. Our dog likes to sit in that chair, and our dog Ravi is we rescued him from India, and we think he's got a little Chippy Pari in him, which Chippy Pari was the Maharaja dog. So we say he's got a little royalty in him, and so he likes to sit on that chair. He looks like a little prince. But yeah, the video that will be released on Monday, I'm in the chair as well. Let's see here. Kind of trying to scroll back here. And I thank you guys for being patient with us as we figure out this live business. Awesome, guys. So many of you here on a Friday night. Awesome, awesome. Here we go. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. New York, upstate Soviet New York. Yeah, yeah. I've learned that a lot of people in America and our states, America's such a big country. Our states are all under different laws and regulations, and Florida's just pretty much open. Georgia's pretty much open too. Atlanta's a little different, but yeah, Saturday morning in Australia. I love Australia, Nick. I spent some time in Australia in my 20s, and I really, really enjoyed Australia. But y'all are having a hard time as well. So Australia's been pretty. Y'all got some flooding going on too. That's crazy. Sam the Illusionist. Oh, cool. I'll have to look up Sam the Illusionist, Caroline. Yep, Sam. So you guys are familiar with him. I'll have to look him up. Is it a he or she? Sam. I would love to have. I wish Todd would come on. Todd is moderating, but he knows so much more about this than I do, and Todd has a really articulate way of speaking. He's a really good teacher, so I wish he would come on and do stuff with you guys. But he's moderating right now, so let's see here. Cool, Florida. Cool, cool. So let me ask you guys this. Do you want us to like do another subject from the raw material next? Or do you want us to find another topic to do on and the next live? What do you guys want? From Colorado. Yes. So you want to do the more raw material. Okay, cool. Well, I will sit down and with Todd and we will we'll look at some different subjects of raw because again Todd is the expert at raw and the biggest lessons I think from the beginnings of raw to take is understanding that there are different densities and that we are in a huge timeline shift right now. I think most people are, at least you guys are aware that that's what's happening, and we do see our world dividing, right? It's like we're on two different timelines. They're the sheeple walking around, and they're us. It's like two different worlds going on. So we do see this great divide happening. Another great channel to check out is The Dark Journalist. He has some stuff on about this as well. That I don't know if he gets into raw, but it very much is similar to like the division of what's happening right now. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, raw is super interesting. Okay, you guys all want raw. Okay, Todd, you heard that. You're gonna have to help me outline more stuff from raw because it is super, super. Lori Ladd, I'll look at Lori Ladd. Oh yeah, Aaron Daughtry. I was actually chatting with Tom Numbers, the numbers guy who comes on my channel a lot. And oh, thank you, Cupcake. I was just reading to you guys though tonight though, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was talking to Tom earlier and I was asking him if he was familiar with the raw material because I was interested in some of the numbers that he might have had that connected with raw. And he follows Aaron Daughtry. He was very familiar with the raw material, the channeling of raw. And maybe I could talk about that next week, like what happened to make them discover raw. That's a whole other story about the raw material, is what actually happened for this all to happen, for this all to take place, this divine intervention. If you believe it's legit, if you think it's all a bunch of crap, then you have that right to think that as well. If you're in the gray, that's cool as well. I think there's a lot of truth to this raw material. It is very, very, very fascinating. So why don't we do that next time? I'll have to look at my schedule next week to find a good time to do a live, and I'll research. I'll write June's name down. Aaron Learn. Yeah, Dolores Cannon. Yeah, we'll get into all that next week. You like Fridays. Yeah, Fridays are good. I feel like Fridays are good because it's like the end of the week. You guys for the people in Australia, it's the beginning of your Saturday. What a great way to start your Saturday with all your friends, your like-minded friends. There's someone, Tamara from Australia, that I would really love to have on the channel as well. She's from Australia. We can do Fridays. I'll have to look at my schedule next week to see what's going on Friday night. And then, yeah, we'll talk about the people who discovered Raw and what happened to bring this all about. So yeah. All right, guys. Let's see here. All right, guys. We are now a little bit past the hour. And I know a lot of you guys probably have plans tonight. I don't want to keep you up for your night. So I appreciate. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, yeah, I love Janine and Tom are like my favorite guests to come on. But I'm gonna look at these chats when we're done, and I'm gonna write all these names down. So thank you guys so much. Oh, Todd just put Dark Journalist up. I think he's going live at 8 too. So he has a lot of great stuff on like mystery schools, which is something I haven't covered on the channel yet because it's but I would love to eventually cover. Again, once censorship is not as heavy on us as it is right now. So thank you guys so much. So I will see. Big plans. Some of us, we never have big plans because we get up so early in the morning. We're for like 4 in the morning. Oh, and if you guys are from Georgia, we had horrible tornadoes last night in Georgia. We got up at like 2:30. It was crazy. And if anybody's watching from Georgia, I hope you guys are all safe and good. We're used to tornadoes here, but for all the surrounding areas, God bless you all. You used to live, you used to ITP. You used to live inside the perimeter. Carrie knows what's up. I'm ITP. I'm inside. So before I go, I'll tell you guys a little Atlanta culture. We have 285, this freeway that runs around the city. And you either live ITP or OTP. So ITP is inside the perimeter. OTP is outside the perimeter. So like the suburbanites. And there are literally t-shirts you can buy in Atlanta that say like, I only go ITP or I only stay OTP. ITP, I'm ITP, I'm inside the perimeter. So, and then usually when you like have a family or want to spread out, you go OTP. So anyway, so that's awesome, Carrie. I love when people use the Atlanta logo, the ITP. So awesome, guys. Well, I hope you guys all have a wonderful, 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 wonderful. Oh, you lived in Dunwood? Yep. Sandy Springs, Dunwood, that whole area. Awesome. You're right on the border there, TC. You're right on the border of OTP and ITP. So you can kind of flip-flop in Dunwoody. But anyway, so I live ITP, but I used to drive to Johns Creek in the morning to teach, which is OTP. So I would be going like reverse of people coming into the city from the suburbs and then coming back. So have a great weekend, guys. Next video will be released on Monday for Monday Mystery, and then we will be getting into the Gospel of Judas on the Dark Outpost, which has Todd just said it ain't Atlanta unless it's ITV. See, there we go. Now we're getting into the OTV ITV. If you guys are really into this stuff, the Gospel of Judas kind of gets into this a little bit too, which is super interesting. I'm going to be doing the Cliff Notes version on Wednesday for you guys, but Tuesday night I'll be on the Dark Outpost to go into the deep dive of the Gospel of Judas. I mean, it's super fascinating. So if you guys really dig this stuff, you will probably dig the Gospel of Judas as well. So have a wonderful night, guys. Thank you so much for the super chats. That was super kind of you guys. You did not have to do that. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate all you guys for spending your Friday evening or Saturday morning with us. That was super, super sweet. Much love to all of you guys from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Todd, who's in the other room moderating. And I will talk to you guys later in the week. God bless all of you. Have a safe night. Bye.